All right, welcome to the G&JB show. Jack Bowen, we're back again, mate.
White Axe Williams. We've just had a mic drop too.
Oh,
Already, a bit early for that.
Trad McLean, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. I'm known as the big white axe. You're the little white axe.
Pickaxe. Tomahawk. What do you want to go with?
Compass, you know, the pricky little things that you used at school. That's Trad. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. Good. It's thanks. It's nice to be here, boys. It's I love your gym and what you're doing here. So yeah, happy to have a chat.
Doing good, mate. Firstly, I just want to touch on, touch wood, your success to date so far at the new position, mate. You're doing excellent things there and been there from probably not day one, but once it was official, I suppose, in the public world, everyone knew about it.
Yeah, close enough. I think I remember the CEO Terry Reader. I'd done a little bit of work for the Dolphins on launching their bid, which was way back in 2019, I think. And then when they 2020, when they got in 21, then, I remember they got in. I was really stoked. I was certain they were going to get in. And the CEO, Terry Reader, I worked with him at the Broncos for, over 10 years. So I'd kind of, given him some advice, tried along the way a bit, but I always thought they were going to win because they're just too well set up. And I think they got in on the Thursday, and he rang me on the Thursday night and said, let's go. And I said, let's go where?
So you were pretty much one of the first employees, like first, handful?
I think I worked out I'm number 3 or 4 through the door. So, yeah, pretty close. And when you think now we're, I was number 3 or 4, we're now about 55 full-time staff plus players. So, yeah, we're going quickly.
Yeah, wow. That's pretty big.
Do you remember getting a phone call? Because you weren't working in rugby league at the time. You were in a recycle.
I was working for the Containers for Change scheme.
Yeah.
It was good. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about it, to be honest. When I did that little bit of work for them, and I hadn't thought about like getting a job. It certainly wasn't peak. But he when he rang me, I went, oh yeah, well. I said, oh, hang on, mate, I've got a job. I'm going all right. I'm quite enjoying myself. No, I need you. And anyway, so we had a quick negotiation on the phone. I had a swing, but I should have swung harder, I think, because he kept saying yes to everything I asked for. But it was it was really, really good. I was excited, and I think I was there in about 3 weeks.
But mate, you were sort of done with footy, weren't you? You were happy in your job,
Yeah. I'd had 12 years in journalism, basically writing about rugby league, and then I had 13 years at the Broncos in PR and media management, and I took a redundancy when COVID hit, and those leagues, Nrl teams were obviously trying to shed staff. I put my hand up straight away and thought, well, this is good, time to do something different. And that's what I did. I think I had 3 months off. I had 6 weeks at home being a homeschool teacher for my daughters. That wanted me to get back to work, I tell you. But then, I had 18 months, I think, with the Containers for Change scheme, like doing something completely different. And but then, when you get an offer like this to get back into, what you like, and I think also being able to build something, that's what I liked. Like the hard thing about the Broncos is a great organisation and, it has some great stuff, but there were some things I didn't like about the place. And, when you've been there 13 years and you get a bit stale, it is time to move. And that's probably what that taught me. I'm glad I jumped. And to be honest, Terry Reader left the Broncos at the same time. And he was probably the bloke who said to me, well, are you leaving? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, I'm going. He said, I think it's time to go. And I thought about it, and in about 24 hours made a decision and told my wife, and she nearly had a heart attack.
What was Terry's role at the Broncos?
He was Chief Commercial Officer, so he ran, which basically puts you, just underneath the CEO. So you run sponsorship, ticketing, all the kind of, I suppose all the corporate sales, anything to do with money comes through ticketing. Comes through commercial, sorry.
All right, well, let's, as we call this going deep, let's go where it all started, where you grew up, Trad.
I was born in Sydney, but moved to Port Macquarie at the age of, a couple of weeks old, because my dad was a football played rugby league in Sydney, played with Manly. My grandfather had played with West and won a few grand finals, so my dad played in the grand final for Manly. So I came right out of a rugby league family, but I always say this to people. So it's amazing back in those days, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even probably into the 80s, how much money there was in country rugby league. Because my dad always says he was on a 2-year contract at Manly and got $5,000 for 2 years in the early 70s. And in 1972, he told Norse he was on 5. Didn't tell him it was for 2 years. Told him it was for 1. Yeah. And North Sydney gave him $7,000 to play that year. And then the next year, he went and signed at Port Macquarie to coach the Port Macquarie Sharks, and he got more. And he actually got, his sign-on was a block of land, right? A block of land in Port Macquarie, and he told me he sold it and bought a cement truck. Now, a cement truck today is $250,000, $300K. That was his sign-on. That wasn't what he got paid to play. That was so he signed on for 3 years. That's how big money was in the country then.
And what was did he work and he had a job and everything?
Yeah, well, that's what he did. He drove a cement truck. That's what he did.
Oh, he did that for his own job, right?
Yeah, that's what he did. He drove a cement truck and he worked, but obviously they were getting more money. I know they bought a house in Port Macquarie. So I spent the first 3 or 4 years later there, and then we went back to Sydney, and he got it. My dad got into selling poker machines, and I think he did pretty well in it. Like myself, he can talk.
That would have been early days in poker machines.
You got to remember, pokies have been around in Sydney since the 60s. So that's why all those players from Queensland went to Sydney, because all those clubs down there had poker machines and could pay players, and that's why it's one of the reasons the NRL got so big, was because of that. But yeah, he did that, and then he actually got a transfer, got a promotion up to Tweed Heads. Now, it's easy to forget that Tweed Heads was the Vegas of Australia then, because Queensland didn't have poker machines, I think, till about 92 or 93. So Tweed Heads in the 80s was busloads of people would come down from Brisbane and go to Twin Towns and Seagulls.
Was it a big gambling culture in Tweed Heads? I've heard that through stories as well, that there was big with horses and dogs and stuff as well, because I don't know why, but I have heard that.
Tweed was always a big, especially because that was where, if you lived in Queensland and wanted to go and play a pokey, that was where you had to go. That was the nearest place.
Yeah.
So
just over the border.
Yeah, it was just across the border, and so it was big. So yeah, Dad went up there, which I thought was a big surprise. But I remember thinking, this is going to be different. I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then we had a weekend at Greenmount Resort when we arrived at Coolangatta Beach, and I was hooked. And
yeah, I bet you were.
And my dad was hooked. I know that because 2 years later, the company he was working for promoted him back to Sydney, and he said, "No, I don't want to go and stay in this job." And they said, "Well, you come now, or you've got no job." And he said, "You stick your job up your ass. I'm staying in Tweed Heads," and he still lives there to this day.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, right. So you went to school there, and you that's where you were brought up.
Yeah. Went to school, Tweed River High. $21 a year was a tough thing. It amazingly, some really smart people came out of it, but the main thing I
class yourself as one of them?
No.
Top 10?
No. There was plenty of smarter than me in my age, but you did get to learn to fight at Tweed River High School. That helped. Yeah. It was a very strongly Indigenous school. I think 30 to 40%. I remember it was the first school in New South Wales to get an actual Indigenous support officer, like in the 80s. Now, when you think about Indigenous support officers and when that's happened in Queensland, I went there in 1985 and we had an Indigenous support officer. So it was a really early adopter. And Tweed Heads has always been a strongly Indigenous area. Lionel Morgan, the first Indigenous player to play for Australia in rugby league, came from Tweed Heads. Larry Corriwer came from Tweed Heads. So it's always been a really, I would say, strongly integrated place. I played at South Tweed Footy Club there, which was the Indigenous club of the area, and I always say that's why I moved from Sydney and I was a centre, and I turned up and one of my mates said, "You, what position you play?" And it was an Indigenous guy, and I said, "Oh, I'm the centres." He said, "No, It's
Not around here,
you're
mate.
playing the forwards.
That's my spot.
No, you're playing the forwards, mate. White guys in the forwards. But I was in the forward pack for the rest of my career.
And then you turn into all elbows and knees.
Well, yeah, you learn quickly. But no, it was a really great place to grow up. And like I said, Tweed Heads it was a little town then. I don't think it's the same. I always say to people, I grew up in the country. I grew up at Tweed Heads, but if you grew up there now, you're not growing Tweed Heads. It's just another suburb of the Gold Coast now.
Yeah.
So after school, so you finished grade 12 there. What happened there? Did you go straight to uni? Did you go on building site? What happened there?
No, I went to Sydney. I got signed by Manly to play Jersey flag down there. It wasn't much for a contract. It was probably more of a come down here and we'll give you a job at the league club. Worked at Manly League Club and played Jersey flag there, which was really good for me.
What's that? Jersey?
So it's like under 19s.
Okay,
Yeah,
so like Colts or something.
Yeah,
right?
like Colts, exactly as Colts. But you're playing for Manly in the same jersey. You play
Okay,
against South Sydney and Bulldogs, and so it's like that.
So all the
contest.
Sydney teams.
All the Sydney teams, yeah. And it was great because it taught me that I wasn't good enough.
Right.
And I think I was smart enough to actually realise that. I played in the back row with Steve Menzies, who went on and played 350 NRL games. Nick Kosef, who played for Australia. Those guys went on and won premierships with Manly. But I remember especially Nick Kosef. I played with him. I remember one of the first days, he told me to run. So I come off the bench and he told me to run. So he said, run where that guy is, the headgear is on the next play. And I said, righto, and he went to first receiver and put me straight through a hole, and I ran 50 metres, and Blake tackled me, and then I played the ball and we scored, and everyone's like, good on ya. And all I remember thinking was, what game is that Blake playing? Because I can't play that.
Yeah, right. He was just a little bit ahead.
And he was 12 months younger than me.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, if that's the level, I'm in trouble here.
Yeah. Oh, you've got to think about this game too. Did you play with Steve Menzies as well?
Yeah.
One of the greats.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. Just had an unbelievable ability to beat a kick out of tackles and run lines, and he was fast. He was a centre. Then they just transitioned into the back row. He was just so quick and just scored tries at will. I remember we played the old Illawarra Steelers down at Wollongong one day, and I think he scored 4 tries or something as a second rower. He just gapped them all day.
Yeah.
Were there any players you played against that made you feel that way as well? That you're out of your depth?
Gordon Tallis was playing for the Dragons that year. I remember like kind of getting half tackled and offloading, like passing a ball, and he hit me, and I was just like, what was that? just rocked me. But Andrew Johns played for Newcastle that year. Nathan Brown was the Dragons hooker. There was some real good players, and I think, you went there and you could tell who were going to be the good ones. John Hopewadi was in our, so he was nice to play in the world, and I have a lot to do with Hopper now through the Tongan Rugby League team, and he's great, but he had the greatest case of white line fever I've ever seen. He was the loveliest bloke there, and we've all seen him in the boxing ring, but he went across that sideline and he wanted to kill people. It was unbelievable. So it was a good place to learn what the level was, and I was reasonably sure I wasn't at it.
So how long were you there?
1 year there, and then North Sydney Bears rang me up and said, do you want to come up here? And so I went up there and played there for 2 seasons, and when I got there it was the same thing. The blokes in front of me were David Fairley, Gary Larson, Billy Moore. I was just like, whoa. And I did get smart in the last year. I actually I got North Sydney to pay for a college course in copywriting, in advertising and copywriting, because I thought, maybe this is what I'm interested in. And so I actually did that course, which actually helped me, and applied for uni. And did a communications, moved back home to the Gold Coast when I turned 21 and went to university.
So at school, were you interested in, were you good at English, journalism, drama? I don't know, what else?
Yeah, English. Yeah, definitely English. I remember one time I skipped out of maths class, I think, and an old teacher named Steve Beecroft, Big Beans, he was a big scary bloke, just gave me an absolute talking to. But I always remember it being a good talking to, because he said to me, what do you want to do? with your life? And I said, oh, I want to play footy. He goes, no, I mean properly. Like, what are you going to do with your life? You know, what are you going to do for a job? And I said, oh, I think I'd like to be a sports journalist. He said, well, you're no hope with the attitude you got, boy. Just gave him a good talking to. I thought about it. But when I did become a sports journalist, you know, years later, he was still around Tweed, and I used to see him. I said, I told you.
He was just doing it to fire you up. Make a decision, mate.
No, he was good. Yeah, as I said, he gave me a good talking to. And that's what I needed. You know, like probably then. My old man was giving me enough of him, but it was good to hear it from outside too.
Yeah, nice.
So many people have a memory like that. You know, you can date back to someone telling you can't do something, and then you think for moments and moments just till you meet that person so you can tell them. Yeah. And obviously, like, not in a nasty way, but in a bit of a petty way. Like, yeah, look at what I've done.
Yeah, and look, I always see, I still see him. We still laugh about it, but it was a good example of a teacher, challenging me and going, yeah, righto. And look, I got to university late. I didn't go to university till I was 21. But it probably maturity-wise, it was good. I was ready to work then, and I went to uni for about 18 months. I had a year off in the middle when I went to France to play footy. But yeah, like the best thing I always say the smartest thing I ever did was actually realise that I was not going to make it in the NRL, and if I wanted to be in and around the NRL, I was going to have to do it another way.
So were you? That's young. That's young to work that out that you're not going to play NRL, because most kids are still hoping at that age. I would think. You were happy with that decision once you'd made it, though?
Yeah, I think so. Like I was a realist about it, but I realised what I thought was I'm going to get as much out of footy as I can, and I'm not talking about money. I was more interested in experiences. One of the great things that happened was when I came back, and I just went back to my old South Tweed club and went and played first grade there, and there were the blokes that I looked up to, like Larry Corowa. I was ball boy when he captain coached them to a premiership down in the Group 18 comp. Like, they were the guys I wanted to be. And so I was happy to go down and be one of them. But because I was at university, I played a bit of university football, and then I made the Queensland and Australian universities teams, and I'm still involved with that league now. But that was like some of the great experiences. We, went to New Zealand on a tour. They actually, Ash Bradnam from Nova 106.9, they roomed him and I together in New Zealand for 10 days. That was a bad move by them, because we played up like a 2-bob watch. We had some fun, but it was. But they were great experiences. And then Great Britain students came out here the next year, and we had like a 3-test series against them. And then from that, I got picked up by a team in France and went over there and played for a year. But I just kept studying, and then once I had finished uni, I went, right, football is now second.
Yeah.
I still played first grade on the Gold Coast, but I remember Rick Stone came across and asked me to come to Burleigh to play in the Queensland Cup, because Burleigh had gone to the Queensland Cup, and I just didn't see myself as a training 4 nights a week and doing weights twice a week. I just thought I've had my crack.
Yeah.
I'm done. Move on.
Yeah, that's a very wise decision, I suppose, because you've done some good things with football on the other side, without the ball in your hand. Mate, you touched on the French opportunity. How did that happen? Did you just go over there and wing it, or did you make contacts before you left?
No, I was lucky. We were playing in the, as I said, I was playing in the Australian university team, and they had some contacts with Taz Batiri was obviously involved with it. He's still the chairman of the Australian University Rugby League, and there were always clubs looking for players of about that level. And so, one of the clubs over there, and I'd known a few blokes who'd gone over and played there. Fred Teasdale, who was played at North Sydney and then at Manly, and I'd actually played against him up on the Gold Coast. He'd been at that club. So me and they were looking for a second row and a halfback, and my mate the halfback, and I said, let's go. It was the best time of my life. It was the only time in my life I've ever been a true professional rugby league player. I was 22, kind of single, but had not really, but had a really good time over there. Like I said, it was a simple life. This this was how our week went. We'd train twice a week, Wednesday and Friday night. That was it, and it was always late because they lived in the south of France on the siesta system. So everyone works from 9 to 12, then has 2 hours off and goes home and has lunch and a snooze, and then goes back to work from like 2 to 7. So we didn't have to work. We were we're on $1,000 a week, which was a lot of money then for a young bloke. So we'd played on the Sunday. Monday, my mate Leesy and I would walk down to town about midday. We'd just start basically pub crawling through the cafes of the town, and they're always looking after you, buying your beers, and you're eating the best food in the world. We'd drink for about 12 hours till midnight and go home.
Red wine?
Bit of red wine. It was mostly still beer. Then we'd go home. We crash out. We'd get up about 6:30 in the morning, and then we jump in the car, and we both liked snowboarding. We'd travel about an hour and a half, and we'd be on the mountain by 9 o'clock, and we'd snowboard for the day, and then we'd come home. Wednesday, we just chill out because we train Wednesday night. Thursday, we got mates with the guys who were at uni because they were about our age in the team, and they all went to Toulouse, which was like an hour away. But Thursday night was the big uni night in Townsville because everyone in town in Toulouse. Yeah. So we'd go down and stay with them, get out on the drink in Toulouse and have a great time. And then we'd come back Friday, train Friday night, and then Friday night was training, team dinner, go to the pub till midnight, then you'd go to the nightclub at 1 o'clock till about 5 a.m. And then you'd come home, and then we'd just chill out Saturday, take it easy, play Sunday, and then start again.
Jeez, that sounds like a life, Trad. Actually, we had a good friend of yours, Lottie DeCurie, on the podcast, and he said to ask you a story about the snake. I think Gareth's got the translation for you, but
Le serpent.
I need to know the background of this story. Can you give me a little insight?
It's a bit about the story where we are now and a bit fast forward, but yeah, I'll leave it over to you, Trad. This is good.
It's my mate Lacey went over with me, and Snake had always been my nickname since I was a kid. I'd had it since I was, 1 year of age. Apparently, when I was a kid, I used to hide. I'd hide behind lounges, and my godfather said he's like a little snake.
Is that where it came from?
Yeah. He's like a little snake. So
I thought it was some real tough story or something. No, that's good. That's even better.
Yeah, I've had it since I was a kid. And anyway, the next thing, I'm over there, and my mate is calling me Snake, and they were like, "Oh, what's Snake? What's Snake?" And they worked out it was Le Serpent, as in French. So that was my name over there, and I've only telling Gareth this. It was even funny. Recently, I was over in England with the Tongan rugby league team, and we were playing France in a warm-up match for the World Cup at Halifax.
The Shay?
Yes, at Halifax, yeah. And I walked in, and this guy had a French tracksuit on walked past me, about my age, and I looked at him, I thought, he kind of looked at me, and I looked at him, and I thought, who's that? Anyway, so we got over there, and I'm thinking, who is this bloke? And then it suddenly dawned on me, and I thought, I know who that is. That's David Collador. He played in the other team, which was the next town along, and we had a real local rivalry. They hated each other. And I remember I must have had about 3 fights with him over there.
Punch on?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because you had to punch on in France.
Oh, did you?
Oh, it was when I'll tell you about my first game in France, but this David Collador, I thought, is that him? So I texted my mate in France and said, does David Collador have something to do with the French team? And he goes, oh yeah, he's the team manager. So I about 10 minutes later, I walked over, he was standing there, and I said, David, I held out my hand, and I said, oh, my name's Trad McLean. And he goes, I remember you. Le serpent.
The snake.
And I said, yeah. I said, David, yeah, I remember you. And we shook hands and had a big hug. And then he comes out of the hug and he goes, I think we fight, no? And I said, yeah, we did, mate. Yeah, we had a few. So it just showed what rugby league's like, Yeah. But that first game I got over there, and we had an Australian manager, and he said he'd gone over and played there in the 80s, and he'd been playing there for a long time and met a girl and stayed there. He's still there to this day. He was a champion bloke. Anyway, he said to me, listen, he said, there's a couple of things. We're warming up to play this first game. He says, a couple of things I need to tell you. He said, one thing, he said, it's round 3 because I'd been playing on the Gold Coast Grade 18 comp, so I'd got over there a bit late. He said, one thing is, he said, mate, everyone's really keen to see you play. He said, because they knew you've been coming for ages. And he said, you finally got here. He said, so what you got to do, he said, is do something early, right? Get into someone. And he said, the other thing is, he said, no matter what you do, he said, they will come in third man in cheap on you. They'll give it to you. He said, all you do is play the ball. He said, and just hit the first bloke that's in front of you. Yeah. And he said,
different world now.
He said, if you do that 2 or 3 times over the next couple of weeks, he said the word will get around and they'll leave you.
Yeah.
So I'm going, okay, they're the 2 things. So we kicked off. And I said to him, all right. I said, so what do you mean do something? He said, just like smash someone early. I said, righto.
It's like Jailhouse.
So, yeah. I said, righto. So I said to him, where's the program? Because we had a program. I said, who's the guy? I said, who's the guy in their team that is famous? Yeah. But is there someone there who's maybe getting a bit older that but he's a big name? And he said, it says this guy. And I won't say the guy's name, but he said, he's played Test football for France. He's a big name. He said, but he's getting a bit old and he's a bit fat and he's only short. I thought, that's my man.
Wasn't Gareth Williams?
Peak.
Hey.
What was that?
No. He was a front row. He was a front row. Anyway, so we kicked off. And we kicked to the other front rower. Anyway, I could see this. I hardly even chased down because I thought I'm gonna jump offside here.
Barrel him.
Yeah, and just anyway, I've jumped about 2 or 3 yards offside. He's going to take the ball. He's caught the ball. I reckon I'm that far away from him. I've just shoulder charged him because you could do that in those days. And the ball's gone flying. He's gone out anyway. And the crowd's just gone, yeah. Anyway, it was fine from then. The crowd loved me. So the crowd loved me. I just had to worry about them. So I reckon about 20 minutes in the second half, I've got tackled. I'm on the ground. The bloke's coming in, just elbow me on the back. And I've got no idea who it is. So I just played the ball and looked up, and there was a centre stand there looking at me, and I just went bang. Hit him straight in the chin.
Shit.
And, like next thing the fight starts. And it's on, and but it's just the way it is in France.
Yeah, hearing that back then from a coach. Have you ever in your modern rugby league time heard a coach say something along those lines?
I
know you can't mention names.
No,
or
not
anything,
these days. You can't do it. You can't do anything these days. You can't think. I think we miss that. We miss that old one-on-one. Like punch up. No one ever got hurt. I don't know why we stopped it, but anyway, I do sound like a dinosaur.
Well, the thing is, now it's been removed from the game. You can't bring it back.
No, that's
so
right.
It'll never come back now. But in Britain Super League, they never. I think you can. Not that you can ever throw punches in the rules, but I don't think it's like automatic send off, is it? If you
these
it in
days,
Super League?
these days, it's different. But in the NRL, that. What always galls me is it all stemmed out of that Paul Gallen incident in Origin when he hit Nate Miles. Now Nate Miles had been giving it to blokes. Paul Gallen, Paul Gallen bashed him, but they got on and played the rest of the game and it was fine. Nate Miles never had an issue with it. That's just the way it goes. I always thought the right way was the one-on-one rule was fine. And the third man in, because if the third man comes in, the fourth man comes in, the fifth man, then the sixth. The third man in was the guy who got sin min. So that would let 2 blokes just sort it out and be done with it. These days, I don't know, it's just, they can't do it.
So what year was that when you're talking Gallen Miles?
I don't know, it's 10 years ago, I suppose. I can't remember. When it is, but that's when they ruled it out. They said, right, that's it.
And did you ever have any? Did you ever do a State of Origin? Were you ever in camp?
I covered them. I covered them as a journalist,
as a Queensland rep, or
more as when I was working at the Gold Coast Bulls as a journalist. I'd cover them and stay in camp with the team, and they were the best weeks ever. But look, I don't know. It really, I struggle now with that they've taken that out of the game. But once again, like I said, I'm 50. I'm a dinosaur. Just get on with it. The way blokes play football these days is unbelievable. Like the NRL, the way they tackle these days is just. You just want. They're actually what really impresses me now is not only the way blokes tackle, but the way the blokes run the ball. Like that junior Paulo.
The intensity, or
yeah, just it's like they're just so hard to tackle. That junior Paulo from Parramatta. If that bloke ran at me, I would turn around and run the other way. Geez, they're unreal these days. So things have changed, but yeah, it was a really interesting, way to see France, and it was great. We used to go to Barcelona for the weekend, and and at the end of it, I went over to England for 2 or 3 months and stayed with my mates in Blackpool, and went to the Challenge Cup final and the old Wembley, and so there was some great experiences in rugby league, and I'm still friends with 2 or 3 of those guys that I played footy with in France. I haven't seen some of them for a long time, but we still keep in contact.
I think you said you were at university when you went to France. Had you already started university?
Yeah,
so what happened? Did you just can it for a year?
Yeah, I took a.
I was about to say there wouldn't be much studying in that drinking
No,
schedule.
there wasn't. Well, it wasn't, mate. There's no internet in those days. You couldn't stay online. The
true.
only way we didn't have a phone line in the apartment I lived. With the family had a phone downstairs. I gave them my family that number if they out of emergency. But I would dead set buy a phone card that was a $10 phone card was 40 francs or something, and I would ring home. I'd always ring home on Monday, because it would be Monday night at home, and I knew everyone would be home. So I'd ring lunchtime Monday, just before we started, just before we got on the drink. It was what I did before everything, and then talk to my mum and dad. That was the only way we kept in contact. We didn't have mobile. We didn't even have a landline. It was different. It was easier those days. No one could find you.
Yeah.
No one could find you.
Now you're always in touch. Yeah, in reach, eh?
Yeah.
Get away a bit.
My daughter's in Hawaii. It doesn't, even though I don't see her physically, you're still in contact all the time, with social media and everything.
Well,
so
you can see each other too.
Yeah, that's
FaceTime, everything.
My best mate lives in Canada, and I don't know, once every couple of weeks or once a month, we get together and have a beer together. It's on a Saturday afternoon. It'll be Friday night there, and we just video call each other, and it doesn't cost anything. And we've had sometimes 3 hours later we're half cut and still laughing. You couldn't do that back then.
So you finished your football over there. What was the team you played for?
Villefranche de Rouergue.
Say that, Jack.
Yeah, I can't. The serpent.
Let's stick with that club mascot.
They were known as
The snake.
Les Loups, the wolves.
Is that what they are?
Yeah, the wolves.
So you came back then, I'm guessing got straight back into uni, and then, I suppose through that period then, were you working? Were you finding jobs, or did you just concentrate on your university?
No. I was working. I used to drive a meat truck around for one of our sponsors at South Tweed, Lenny Britt, who always, whenever I went overseas and came back, he'd always have a job for me. He's one of those blokes. He'd always find something for me. He's a legend, Lenny Britt. I did that. I've worked at the Coolangatta Singers Hotel. Work behind the bar and throw a few blokes out, just that sort of stuff. In the 90s, that's the other thing. When you're a bouncer, if someone had a crack at you, you could give them a hide, and you wouldn't end up at the cop shop. It was a little bit different, but no, I was doing that sort of thing, and was really then focused on finishing my degree, my communications degree, and I was majoring in journalism and PR. I didn't even want to do PR, but I wanted to be a journalist, but you had to do 2 things, so I picked the one that was closer. Hilariously, for the last 20 years, I've been in PR and public relations. Before that, I just wanted to be a journalist. So, but I was playing in the local comp, and I knew the local sports reporter, and I said to him, I've got to do some work experience for uni. Can I come and do 1 day a week in my last semester?
Was that the Bulletin? Or?
It's the Tweed Daily News.
Right.
And it's a little Tweed paper, and I did that. And by the time I'd finished my degree, I was kind of doing 1 or 2 days a week, I think, there. And I said to the boss, I said, I'm finished. And he said, I said, I'm finished uni. He goes, oh, well, we still need you to come in 2 days a week. I said, well, yeah, you can, but you'll have to pay me. And he goes, oh, yeah, okay, or I'll put you on 2 days. And then they put me on 2 days casual, and then realised, I was only a young guy. They were paying me too much. He goes, actually, I've got a full-time job for you. So I worked there.
In the sport?
Yeah, in sport for about 18 months. And then the Gold Coast Bulletin rang up. Must have been doing something right, because they rang me.
rang you direct and offered you a position while you were still working?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
And so I moved up there. For me, I thought, this is I'm going to the big paper. And I worked at the Goal, and then I was there. I think I covered rugby union for about the first 6 months, which I'd never had anything to do with.
Did they give you a certain sport, or were you sport in general?
No. Generally they gave you a certain sport. And by then, I did rugby union the first year, but clearly I was going to be the rugby league writer the next year. And then I was, and we in those days we had 3 guys writing rugby league, but I was the chief rugby league writer. So there was no Gold Coast team then, so I had to cover the Broncos. And the other sports, you picked up the smaller sports, and that's when I first came into contact with you. I started doing a bit of boxing writing, and I used to do. It was great. I used to do rugby league in winter, and I'd do surf life saving in summer. And that was when the Kellogg's and the Uncle Toby's and all those, they were great trips. You'd go away to a beach for a weekend.
Mate, I remember Trad working for the Bulletin, because I remember myself and Chrissy, we'd work sometimes up the sunny coast and sometimes down the coast. Brisbane and sometimes the Gold Coast. And we'd get the Courier Mail, and Grantley Keezer would hammer Anthony Mundine, and we were a big fan, and Trad would write positive stuff about Anthony Mundine. It was like, I'm friends with Grantley now, but it was just I suppose, being a fan. And Trad used to write, you used to always write positive stories about Chock. I suppose, was it because of the football, or did you know Chock at the time?
No, I didn't really know him much till after I'd interviewed him a few times. But what I think is, Anthony Mundine was truly like one of the great modern day athletes of Australian thing. And look, he's controversial, and people, a lot of people don't like him. But he was like, name someone else who's played in the grand final, played State of Origin, didn't play for Australia, probably could have, but just was close. And then went on and won boxing world titles. I just thought he was amazing. And the other thing was, remember, he really liked fighting on the Gold Coast. So I'm pretty sure his debut was on the Gold Coast.
Gerard Zoss. Not sure, but I think his second fight,
might be his second fight.
He was down at Carrara.
Carrara, yeah, I remember. And I remember that room. And I remember being in that room, and it's probably, I've ended up working in the commercial arm of sport, but it was the first time I saw it that night. I remember looking around, and I looked around and I thought, you know what, this bloke's a genius, because he's got half the room here love him and are going mad over him. The other half want to see him get knocked the hell out, but he's getting everybody's money.
It was Muhammad Ali all over again, wasn't it? On a different scale and different, but a similar model, I suppose.
Yeah, I think for Australia, look, he's controversial. So was Muhammad Ali, but I just thought Anthony Mundine was an amazing athlete, and like really great. He gave me some great interviews. I remember, I'd go and see him at his wherever he was staying. If he'd come up the week before he'd fight, and I'd go and see him. And I just remember sitting on a sun, like a banana lounge out, interviewing him for 10 or 15 minutes. And because he used to get on TV camera and say all these outrageous things, he knew he would. He was just trying to get things. But when you sat and talked to him, he was smart. He was, he was considered. He had deep opinions and thought about things, but he wasn't. And I thought they were two different. He was two different, two different personalities. Like when there was a TV camera on, he'd start going, crazy. But he was really good. But I certainly enjoyed following his career, and seeing what he did was really amazing.
Mate, he's you just speak to people just generally, and they bag him out because what they hear about the news, especially a few years ago. It's probably settled a bit now. But I remember when he got knocked out against Sven Ottke in his 10th fight for a world title. And no one's fighting for world titles in their 10th fight. Never mind a guy that was 3 years ago playing rugby
Sven
league.
Ottke.
Yeah,
Sven Ottke.
Undefeated. It was crazy.
He dared to dream. I'll give him that. And remember, he left rugby league at the top of his game. I'm pretty sure he was... 26?
25, 26,
yeah. He left at the top of his game. And but he was destined for higher things, and he found them.
I remember watching Fox Sports. There was a panel, and Chock was talking about him turning professional. When he's ready, he wants to fight for the Australian title, the world title, all this. And Jeff Fennick ambushed with... Heath Stenton, it might have been, another boxer. Anyway, and Chock was going, I'm not ready now, but I'll be ready soon. And when he was, he beat him. Like, he actually did everything he said he was going to do. And, you know, mate, people didn't know, but what a role model really for young people to look up to. Young Indigenous boy, didn't drink, didn't touch drugs, didn't smoke, lived a very clean life. And he's one of the guys that, you know, you see occasional freak in the world of sport. You see a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant. Mate, in Australian sport, I'll put Anthony Mundine as you know, their equivalent in Australian sport, you know. That's somebody with work ethic and talent. Normally, you just see the work ethic get to the top, don't you?
Discipline.
It's very rare that you get somebody, and that's why you get a freak occasionally, because they've got work as well as talent, you know what I mean? So most people just rely on talent and either don't get there or work.
Boxing was great in those days, Jack. Like, you know, like on the Gold Coast here, like Jamie Moore, who was a long-time boxing promoter, we'd actually went to high school together. You might even actually flog me in high school, I'm pretty sure. But he's, Jamie, you know, he used to bring some good shows, you know. He brought Hopper up there. I mean, I remember when he brought Butterbean to Australia. That was awesome. Butterbean was the big, fat, massive 150-kilo bloke who could actually fight. And
so I grew up on because this was when I was young, but Dad would always watch it, and I never knew I'd take this path, but I'd always watch it as a fan. And back to Anthony Mundine, I met him. The first time I ever met him, it was a week after my first fight, and I was at the airport going to Melbourne to see my family. And I remember meeting him, and mate, he could not give me more time. You could tell he was busy, he had things going on, and he would have given me 5-10 minutes of his day. And I just had one fight. I was nobody, didn't know me anything, and I just remembered that when I was a kid, that if I ever get to a position like that I'm going to treat people the same way.
It'd be good to get Chock Allen actually on the podcast and talk about this, because he tells a story about Viv Richards. Have you heard that story? Didn't give him the time of day. And he said, when I'm somebody, I'll always give kids the time of day.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. But we'll let him speak about that. Hopefully we can get him on.
Yeah. But I do remember names like, I remember Butterbean fighting. I think I remember Shannon Taylor fighting on those shows as well.
Yeah, Shannon Taylor, I saw him win a world title. He hit a bloke with an uppercut, put the bloke straight to sleep. It was at the Royal Pines, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm sure he won like a WBF or...
WBF, yeah.
Yeah, I said he was, Shannon Taylor was another one. Like, it was just great. I mean, to be honest, my favourite was, and I've spoken to you about him, was Paul Briggs.
Yeah,
I mean, Paul Briggs.
I watched Paul a lot as well.
Yeah, he was unreal. I remember before he went over to fight Thomas Adamek. Yeah, I did. I had like a muck around spar with him. It was just frightening. It was the worst thing about Paul Briggs was I was, I don't know, 6 inches taller than him, and he was about that far away from the whole time.
Yeah,
just didn't. He was just so close.
Stalking you.
His brother used to fight too, Nathan.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Nathan could fight too. Nathan was completely different athletes. Nathan was 6'4" and 105 kilos. He was, but yeah, Paul Briggs was amazing. And I was devastated he didn't win that fight, like absolutely devastated, like because he had to go. He went and fought him in Germany, didn't he? He was Polish, I think. But he fought him in Germany, I think, from memory.
The first one, it was close.
It was really, really close, and it was really sad because it would have been great if he'd have won that, because that was the same title that Jeff Harding had won, the WBC light heavyweight, and Jeff Harding's manager was my dad's best mate, was Timmy Pickup, and and I actually had a the tape you cut off. I had from a Harding fight at Tweedhead Seagulls, and I went with my dad, and he taped it and wrote, to Trad all the best from Jeff Harding, and I gave it to Paul Briggs when he went over there that fight, hoping to be a good luck charm, and he just got beat.
Didn't he win that fight in like the 12th round by knockout or something?
15th round.
I think, I can't remember, but it was close.
I remember. I've got some.
Oh, you mean Harding?
Jeff Harding, yeah.
Harding. No, Harding
he was losing.
12th.
15th.
Oh, yeah. Dennis Andries.
Yeah, Dennis
Yeah,
Andries.
I
He was the world
remember-
champion. He knocked him out. He was getting smoked, and he
Yeah.
knocked him out in the 15th round.
He was gone. Okay,
Yeah.
he was behind on every card. He was gone. It's unbelievable. He come out and knocked him out. He was a pommy, wasn't he, Dennis Andries?
Yeah, I've got that on VHS if you want to borrow it.
What is
There's a thing
VHS?
called YouTube now these days, Gary. No, I remember watching all those kind of fights back in the day. I remember watching Robbie Peter and Nate Campbell,
Yeah.
and then the 5th round, Nate Campbell like dropped his hands, and then Robbie Peter, I'm pretty sure it was a jab, and he just threw it at him and drops him and wins the
Yeah.
world title. It's crazy.
No, it
Yeah.
was
That,
good.
that was a good time in boxing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had a lot up here. We had a lot up here, I think. You know, like I thought, you know, the Southeast Queensland punched above its weight there, to use a bad pun.
And a lot of time, Jamie Meyer ran some good shows back then, but there was also the Fennec fight nights. It was quite
Yeah.
well covered
Yeah.
on TV back then as well.
Friday
The other
night
one
fights.
who did fights at the tour was the Mordies always did fights at Tweedhead Seagulls and Twin Towns. I used to go and cover a lot of them. Love More to Do fought in Tweedheads
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
I did plenty of stories with Love More to Do, and used to go and meet Craig Mordy at the Coolangatta Sands Hotel and have a few beers with him. He was always he was always keen and happy to do it. But yeah, Love More to Do. I remember fought in the guys that come up from I don't know. I think, like I said, it was all part of that. Tweed was, you know, a big, you know, they had big clubs and big areas because of poker machines, and then Queensland brought poker machines in, and yeah, that changed.
Yeah. So, mate, after your bulletin days, obviously you had some good times there. It was a really good introduction into sport, I guess, for you. And then how did the Broncos job come about? Did you apply for it, or did they
No.
come knocking again? Or
No, this what was really, really weird when COVID came along, and I actually went and left the Broncos and had to apply for jobs. I didn't know how to apply for jobs because I'd kept walking into them.
Being
No,
poached.
look, I'd covered the Broncos pretty closely for about 6 or 7 years in the early 2000s. I'd become quite close with Andrew G, who was a player then. I'd played footy against his brother on the coast, and
Keith?
It's actually the younger brother, Mark.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh.
I know Keith too, but Mark played a fair bit. He played first grade for the Gold Coast, and then played at like Burleigh and stuff down there. So I played against him. So I didn't know Andrew, but I introduced myself, and I don't know, his brother told him I was an all right bloke. And anyway, Gigi and I got on really, really well. And then I suppose became a bit of a different journalist for them. I used to be around the players. But like I tell people now, like I was a journalist. I used to go to Mad Monday. Can you imagine that these days?
Mate, I've got to jump in, mate. Andrew G, toughest bastard.
Oh, it's
Mate,
unbelievable.
I've just got to tell you this, though. I don't even know if you know. We had, at the old gym at the university when we first opened, I think it might have been Wolfie that organised it, big sparring day. And GG was the CEO,
Yeah, football manager.
football manager.
Yeah.
So he goes, "Oh, I'm in." Everyone was in, coaches, staff, everyone was in. They were punching the shit out of each other. Andrew G, fuck this, I'm not wearing a head guard, no mouth guard, just stood there and toe-to-toe with anyone that wanted it. There was blood all over the floor, mate. Anyway, that's about the last I've heard of Andrew G, but
He's still around. He was,
but mate,
I still talk to him.
hard man.
Yeah, he was a hard guy. And he was tough on the field. I remember, when I was still playing back in the day, GG he'd finished, but they decided to have they had like a benefit day at Bow Desert, which is where he's from. His family from, and his brothers were getting together, and so they were playing like a Masters game, an old place, and it was all old Broncos players, and they were playing like a team on the Gold Coast that actually did play Masters. They played it quite seriously. Anyway, so I did a story about it, and I spoke to the bloke who was on the Gold Coast Masters team, and I said, "Mate, you looking for any players?" And he goes, "Oh, what do you want to play?" And I said, yeah. I said, "I'm not 35 yet. I'm only 33, but I'm getting close." He goes, "Oh, no, you can play if you want. It's just a benefit day." So I didn't really tell GG. I was mates with him, but I didn't really tell him. And I turned up at the day, and I saw him. He goes, I said, "Oh, hey, how you going?" He said, "Oh, good." He said, "You come up to cover the game?" I said, "No, actually, I'm playing." Walked into the other dressing room. Anyway, it was a mistake because they kicked off. Anyway, Mark G, who I knew his brother, I could see him. They come out there kicking off to us. I'm at the back, like front row, like where you are, and I see GG point. And anyway, So they kicked off straight to me. Anyway, so I thought, I'll just get this out of the way. So I've
just knocked it on.
I should have. I've taken the ball. I've come straight back at Gigi, and Gigi's just kind of like hasn't really come forward at me. Anyway, two blokes attacking me, and Gigi's just come and just gone bang, and hit me straight in the ear and split my ear. First tackle. Then a couple of tackles later, I think we've dropped the ball. We've come to the scrum, and he's like going to the ref, blood bin, get him off. Just how your mates treat you.
In a Masters game.
Yeah, but he was he was a good guy, and I kind of got to know him and was around the thing. And then it just so happened that Tony Durkin, I hadn't even thought about it, Tony Durkin, who was the media manager then for the Broncos, was retiring. And Gigi said, would you be interested in the job? And I said, I suppose so. And then so I had organised to meet Bruno Cullen, the CEO, and I don't know, about half an hour later, I thought to myself, gee, I might get this job. And yeah, I was going up. And it was a really interesting time because the Gold Coast Titans were coming in 07. It was 06, so I basically came up, and the Broncos were going really well. So I kind of knew I was going to the Broncos at that stage, and then they won the premiership, which was the last premiership they won, so maybe they shouldn't have employed me. But
so you joined after, the year after?
Well, I'd agreed to join. I started just after, so I think in the December after they won the grand final. But yeah, then the Titans were coming in because a lot of people had thought I'd go and work at the Titans. But no, once the Broncos were there, I was pretty keen to be in. And I moved to Brisbane. My girlfriend then was actually from Brisbane. She's now my wife, and she's still from Brisbane, and so am I.
Who was the coach there at the time? Bennett?
Yeah, so was Wayne.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting to find myself with Wayne. It's nearly 20 years later. So I've known Wayne since probably about 2000, and our relationship's been like combative sometimes, but respectful, and he's really he amazes me to this day the way he can. Someone asked a really good question of Hamaso Tabua Fidel, our fullback, Hammer. He's 21. Someone said to him, Wayne Bennett was 52 when he was born. Like, how does a 73-year-old elicit performance from a 21-year-old?
Yeah.
It's amazing when you think about it. But Wayne's always been, he's really, I always think Wayne's real skill is that he's able to, he can work out what makes you tick.
Yeah.
And he shows real care for his athletes. And I think they want to repay that.
Yeah. And Lottie was saying he knows how to bring a team together.
There's
Would
no
you
doubt.
say that's one of his great attributes?
No doubt, but I think he does it individually.
So everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, and then gets me. He's got a gift that's just unreal.
So what was your first role there at the Broncos?
So I was media manager then, and so it was basically just looking after media. There was social media was only just in its infancy. I remember
MySpace.
Or
Facebook.
I started. We started Facebook.
Facebook.
A couple of years later.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the Broncos are still probably the biggest Facebook in Australian sport. We got in early. It wasn't even. I actually employed a young guy called Tristan Kroll, who is now the head of digital and design at the Dolphins. He worked at the Broncos for 15 years, and then he's come over to the Dolphins. But he was a young guy, was really, really smart in that space. He said, we need to get into here. I remember putting a video on our website, and no one had ever seen that before. I worked out how we were going to do it. It took forever. But, it was really, really different the way he did things. See, the Broncos really only had a website for a couple of years, but weren't really servicing it. And one of my things I said to Bruno Cullen, CEO, was, look, the days of magazines and the club magazine, that's done.
Cool.
It's all about this website. And I remember the Broncos used to change their website 2 or 3 times a week. And within about 12 months of doing there, we were changing it like 3 or 4 times a day.
So that you use your website like people use Facebook now.
Well, that's right. And what we used Facebook and Twitter to drive people to the website. Yeah. And because I've always thought, the website is your shop. So how do you get people to buy clothes if you've got a shop that Garden City. Well, unless you can get him in the door, you can't. So that's what we tried to do with content, and it's basically what everyone does these days. But I'm talking about. That's probably 2008. So it's early.
Was the aim to drive them to the website just to see what's going on, or was it to drive and sell merch on there, or
both.
What other things were involved?
Both. Yeah, it was really about trying to get people to visit your website and buy tickets and buy a shop. And if people are interested in you, they want to come and play footy. And if want to come and watch footy and buy tickets to footy, if they don't, it hasn't changed these days. And if they can't buy tickets because they don't come to games, but they like the club and like what they're doing, well, they're going to buy a jersey or a shirt or a hat or a training shirt.
What's one of the biggest challenges you had personally at the Broncos?
Look, we had some. We've had some really tough behavioural issues are always hard. Yeah. We've had a lot of them.
That's a big part of your role, looking after the young blokes as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, when they've done the wrong thing, trying to make sure that the club's being seen to do the right thing and making sure we're doing the right thing. And that's one thing Wayne's always been strong on. So getting that stuff is when you've got a player who's appearing in court or has done something wrong or in a fight or is drink driving or something. There's always issues, but you've got a way to realise. Since social media, there is no sweeping it under the rug. You can't keep anything quiet. What you do hope is that you know about it once it's happened, and generally players will give themselves up these days. If that's happened, then you can put a process in place. So by the time you get to the media, you say, yes, this happened. This is what we've done. This is the outcome. So rather than 3 days of bad headlines while the club's deciding what it's going to do, like that hurts you.
And the media makes its own mind up. You kind of take accountability from the start.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it is. It's about making sure that you're I suppose acknowledging that something's gone wrong, something's not right here, and making sure we do something about it. But as I always say, like they're young men, and the hard thing about the guys we have is they're risk takers. If you're involved in rugby league or boxing or UFC or rugby union, you've got to be a risk taker, because you can't be a risk taker and not run the ball at three blokes. Right, blokes, but people who won't taste risks won't do that, and they won't step into the boxing ring either.
Yes. Well, you're not walking that line, really, are you, in life?
No, that's right. So that's the hard thing. So that's hard. But I would say the toughest and then proudest moment of 13 years at the Broncos was when we got beaten in the 2015 grand final.
Oh, what a game!
Yeah, I mean, it's a shit of a game. I won't re-watch it, but it was it was an amazing week, for Queensland Rugby League, the Cowboys and the Broncos. But getting beat in extra time when we'd led all day till 6 seconds to go or whatever was just heart-wrenching. And then I'll never. I'd say my favourite player that I've ever come in involved with is Ben Hunt. I love Ben Hunt. I knew him since he was 18 and under 20s, and watched him play first grade. I was media manager for the Kangaroos when he made his debut for Australia. I was so proud. I saw him a couple of weeks ago in Wollongong before the game, and I generally won't talk to other opposition players for the game, but I saw him and we had a big hug. He's just one of those. But the way he knocked on that thing, and then we all know that. We all knew what was going to happen.
He would have copped it for so long.
Yeah, Jonathan Thurston. But I'll never forget this. At the end of the game, when we got beat, I remember walking out in the field and just saying to myself, this didn't happen to you, it happened to the players. So get over yourself and do your job and look after them. And I'll never forget Hunty. It makes me teary thinking about it now. I said to him, I'll look after you, honey. We'll be right. You just stay. And anyway, the media all came into the dressing room, and I said, honey, you just go hide. And he said, nah. He said, Trad, it's over. He said, the game's over. We're done. It doesn't matter. He said, go get the media, put them in the corner, He said, I'll come over and talk to them and answer their questions and just be done with it. He said, we can't change anything now. It's all over. He said, just go and do it. And I thought, you know what? I reckon 90% of the rest of the people would have just gone and hid in the toilet stall and cried. But he just went up and faced up and just said, you know, it's disappointing, but it's happened. You know, we're unlucky. That's just life. And I think he's been a better one. And I tell you, when he charged that ball down and covered it and rang the length of the field for Queensland in the State of Origin last year, no one cheered harder than me.
Yeah.
Like, it was just, I thought, you deserve that, honey.
But at the end of the day, he dropped a ball.
That's right, mate.
We've all done it.
Yeah, we get things wrong.
Yeah.
We get things wrong, and I'll never forget it. But I like that he has never let it. He's still one of the best players in the NRL. He's still, like, there are a few better. I reckon there's a few better hooker halves playing number 14 at rep level. Like, whenever he does it for Australia, he's great. When he does it for Queensland, you know, he's great. So I'm a Ben Hunt fan, but I'll never forget the bravery he showed that night. He could have hidden, you know. That would have ruined a lot of blokes' careers. But he just got on with it, and he's just a good boy from Blackwater, you know, that just dealt with it.
Even the aftermath of that, with the Broncos being so big in Brisbane, just being able to walk around would have been hard for him, I'm assuming. Did you have much to do with that process? Or
Yeah, look at the honey was just like, you know, that's what he's like. Just get on with it.
soldier on?
Just get on with it and go. And he was just, like I said, I just thought, wow, you know, that would have ruined a lot of people.
Yeah.
That had never got over it, but he has, and he's done well. And he's still doing it. He's still going well there for. I mean, he'll play Origin for Queensland this year. I've got no doubt.
And carve them up again.
Well, let's hope so.
Mate, so then, look, we know you went through, we all went through COVID. Mate, looking back, that was a weird, crazy time. At the time, we were just winging our way through it, but the gym was closed. Obviously, you lost your job at the Dolphins.
Broncos.
At the at the Broncos.
Gained a job.
And then moved on. But I know you worked for Containers for Change, and that was a total... it was a change.
I was happy though. You saw me. I used to come
you
here.
were. And I think you said, I'm done with footy.
Yeah,
you said, I'm done.
Yeah, I was. I was quite happy to get on, and I was actually even enjoying being a spectator.
Yeah.
And I used to when we were allowed to to go to the footy and take my daughter and it's it's up. But as always, rugby league, she drags you back in, and I was suddenly back at the Dolphins.
I remember chatting with you, and you. I don't know if it's the same now, but I think you said if it was another footy club that had come in, I don't know if I'd have been interested. But the fact that it was new and I could be here from the ground up, I think that's what brought you in, wasn't it?
Yeah, the great thing was, it was, like I said, for one, the CEO Terry Reader is a guy I'll always be eternally thankful for not only giving me this job, but like we worked together a long time at the Broncos. But to be able to just go, okay, what looks good with red and white? Well, I love the San Francisco 49ers. What do we think about that? I love the 49ers, red, white and gold. That's beautiful. Like, to be there on the day where we actually sat and chose the jersey, and there was 3 jerseys and we were deciding which one it was. And look, the CEO always wins those ones, but to be part of that, part of that discussion.
Yeah.
And even when we're talking about when we talk about everyone's going crazy over fins up, we sat, there was one day where we sat and argued over whether it would be fins with an F or fins with a PH, and we came to the conclusion that PH worked much better because we were dolphins and the Sharks can't use that because they're fins with an F. So, it was just little things like that. And then sponsors coming on board, we have generated more sponsorship dollars in our first year than any other NRL club does now, except the Broncos. So every Sydney club, South Sydney and up, we've got more signed up in sponsorship now. We're well over $10 million this year alone. And you think South Sydney are 115 years old? We've done that in our first year.
That's huge in year one.
In year one, it's been unbelievable. And what's happened, what it means really is South East Queensland's ready for another team. right, for a second Brisbane team. And, you know, like
Whereas
I said,
back in the day, they weren't.
well, they probably have been for a few years, but certainly, you know, and what we found was all these, like, we didn't have to go out and source sponsors. They were just beating the door down because so many clubs. Because what you do is if you sign an insurance company, right? Well, that they're the insurance company is the only person who can use your brand, so it's exclusive. So NRMA Insurance had been with the Broncos for 20 years. So the minute we got in, budget director beating your door down.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and
they want opportunity.
Great. Yeah, well, they saw the opportunity, and they've created that character Dwayne Bennett, who's been going mad on social media.
So how did that come about?
Well, that was part of the. It's part of the deal that that they were going to create a campaign around our brand, and that's what they came up with, and like this character. And we were just kind of, like the first thing we had to do was make sure Wayne was all right with it, you know, because he's supposedly his long-lost cousin, but they've done it completely well. The hilarious thing is, you know, they've done it well when I get people sending me emails saying, could you guys send Dwayne Bennett out to our school to talk to our students? I'm like, he's an actor. He was on the blocks 3 years ago, that guy.
Does he work for the Dolphins?
No, he's an actor that they've brought in to run this campaign, but they've run it so...
Mate, he's got a job for life now. Unfortunately, he can never die, that guy.
Yeah, it's amazing. But this is what I've said. We've seen this. We've had, you know, Kings, like Adventure Kings was look, they sponsored us in the year we didn't even play. Like, that's how they wanted to get in on the ground up, and because obviously, and then this is where it works. Adventure Kings sponsored us, which is great. I'm pretty sure BCF sponsored the Broncos last year, because you know they're in that they're in competition. This is how it works. The only sponsors we really share are Forex, I always thought we'd end up with Carlton, because I thought, Forex around, but Forex were desperate to have us on, and have always been great to work with. The people at Forex, one of my favourite sponsors.
Is that anything to do with the fact that you both play at Suncorp, or
no?
It's totally standalone, like because Suncorp is a Forex.
It just depends. It just depends who. Like with Porridge rights, it's the way it works. Yeah. But generally, they've got everyone who's there, and that's what they want. So that was an easy deal to do. Bluebet, our sponsors are, funnily enough, guys who originally started Sportingbet and sponsored the Broncos that we worked with 15 or 20 years ago. Their CEO, Bill Richmond, I've been mates with him for a long time. One of my very best mates who works high up in Bluebet. So we actually found ourselves we announced the Bluebet luncheon sponsorship, and he came up, and him and I, we lived together in a unit in Kirra for 3 years in the early 2000s before I moved to Brisbane. And then one day last year we found ourselves at lunch with his CEO, my CEO, Wayne Bennett, and him and I were...
Wayne or Dwayne?
No, Wayne was there. We were eating $70 steaks and drinking bottles of red, and he said to me, "How did we do this?" I said, "I don't know. Just shut up. I don't know how we did this, but we did."
But mate, you're just thinking about them when you're talking with all the sponsorships. Terry Reader coming from sponsorships to the Broncos, he was the ideal man to run the Broncos. He already made those contacts. At the Dolphins. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of people we do know, but Terry's really, really, is clearly a smart operator. Look what he's built in 18 months. And the other guy there is our chief commercial officer, is Damien McDowell. Was a guy who also worked at the Broncos for a long time under Terry, and then he went to Port Adelaide, and then went to Collingwood. So he's had a fair bit of experience in AFL and how they do things, and now he's up here. So those guys are really driving what we're doing commercially, and mate, it's been a absolute massive success. But we need to remember the reason we have been a massive success is because those guys at the Redcliffe Dolphins over the last 75 years have built an amazing precinct, an amazing business. Like no other NRL team has their own stadium. Right? No other NRL team has their own stadium. Everyone else's is owned by the government and they just rent it. No other NRL team has a shopping centre with a Coles in it, tentative to 25 years. We've got a gymnasium, we've got an aquatic centre. The only ones really who are who rival us are Penrith, who own a lot of lease sub and have a lot of land. But we
not Brisbane?
Our asset base dwarfs the Broncos.
Really?
Yeah. It's like they're an amazing business.
Well, you'd know, yeah.
Yeah, they're an amazing business.
Yeah.
But they don't have a stadium. They don't have a shopping centre.
It's amazing to see, like, even though it's a new NRL club, there's still so much history.
Yeah.
You've got Beats and all those superstars that so many people. Like I played at Redcliffe, not for Redcliffe. I played against Redcliffe. I never won a game there, just quietly. But yeah, everybody that's played rugby league at some sort of level in Queensland has got a bit of a connection to Redcliffe. They might have played there, or
they're a famous club. And I think what I like about them is they're always to me they were like the country city club. Like a lot, they get a lot of blokes from the country because blokes didn't really want to live in Brisbane. They wanted to play in the BRL. So you go to Redcliffe, and it was kind of like it. I mean, it's beautiful out there. Like nearly every player, the NRL player we signed, we thought they'd kind of live, on what I call that Brisbane North Shore. From Hamilton through to Sandgate. I thought they'd be somewhere there. Because it's close to Trona, but you're still close to Brisbane. Or they've been up on the Sunshine Coast, which is really only 45 minutes away. They are all living around Newport and Scarborough and around those places, because what we've forgotten about is these guys are used to being in Sydney and having to drive an hour and a half to get to train and traffic 4K and that.
4K down the road.
Yeah. Now, Ray Stone rides his push bike to train it. He just lives around the corner, rides his push bike to train. So it's been really interesting that I think that historical attachment that guys had to Redcliffe, because it wasn't quite city. It was like in the city, but it wasn't. It's continued through with these places. It's really what a lot of the players really appreciate too.
I think coming out and winning a few games straight up builds a bit of momentum.
That was huge.
Yeah,
because like any other club that's come in, like even if you look at the AFL, the GWS or Gold Coast Suns, and then the NRL Titans and what have you, but they didn't really build that momentum ever. And you guys have just come out and smashed it straight away.
Yeah, I mean it's been amazing. But we're all realists. Like the last 4 weeks, we're 1-3. We won our first 3, which was beautiful. It was a lot of emotion. We knew we'd been up for a while. It was going to come, but we need to get back. There's a long way to go. But as Wayne said, we've certainly made some people who wanted to say we were going to run last look silly. And that's been an enjoyable part of it, I must admit. But I know how long an NRL season is. We're round 8 this week. We're playing the Titans on Sunday. We need to win that game to get us back on up. If we could get to 10 rounds in and be 6-4, even 5-5, it's a pretty good start. Like we're hovering around the 8.
Yeah, that's looking good then. Yeah.
Did I think we were going to win our first 3 games? No. But that first day, unless I hang around at the Dolphins long enough for us to win a grand final, I don't think we'll ever have a day like that. That day we beat the Roosters was just magic.
Out of 15 years in footy, is that one of your biggest moments?
I can't remember. I can't remember a day like that. Like I said, if I'd have been part of the 15 grand final we won there, you'd probably say that. But even Wayne, I remember Wayne saying to me afterwards, he goes, "Mate," he said, "that was some kind of day." He said, "You've really probably got to win a grand final to top that." Like to come out,
and he's done it all.
Yeah, to come out at Suncorp Stadium in front of 32,000. 32,000. Like you very rarely get that in Sydney. Like to have that there, it was a sea of red. playing the Roosters, we're honouring Arthur Beats and his family are there at the start, and then the boys just go out and put him to the sword. It was just, I couldn't believe it. I wanted, with 20 minutes to go when we were leading, I just wanted to go to sleep and wake up at full time and just hope we're still in front. I actually hate the game. I really hate during the game. I want the game to be over.
With a win?
Yeah, I just want to be over. I hate I enjoy watching, but I hate worrying about the score. But that day was just magic. When the hammer went through and scored that first try, I've rarely felt thing like that. And I was lucky enough. I remember at the end of the game, my daughter Hannah, who you two both know and has been in this gym, she's a ball girl and is absolutely loving it. And I remember her at full time I'd almost forgotten that she was on the side. It was her first time as a ball girl. She's run up and jumped and gave me a big hug, and I reckon I'll remember that moment forever.
She would have loved it.
Oh, she loves it. She loves it. She's on the roster. She's not on this week, because they've got a few extra kids, so they've got to have a game or two off during the season. And she's A, filthy about it, and B, I'm coming to the game anyway.
Mate, another mate of ours and a huge asset to the club, Kristian Woolfe. Mate, what does he bring?
Yeah, Wolfie's great. I've had a fair bit to do with Wolfie over the last. I suppose I've known Wolfie about 10 years. He was assistant coach to Anthony Griffin at the Broncos when I was there, so I knew him. But he was always really, really good. He was a young coach then, cutting his teeth. Since then, he's really. He's really turned himself into, I think the next big thing in coaching. If he keeps on the trajectory. In 2017, he rang me and asked me if I'd be media manager and team manager for the World Cup for the Tongan team, because he'd been involved with them, and he really saw the, I think the talent base and what Tonga could be, and has since turned them into it. We went to the World Cup semi-final in 2017. 2019, beat Great Britain 1 week, and then the next week beat the Kangaroos and became the first team in 40 years to tier 2 team in 40 years to beat one of the big nations, to beat the Kangaroos. That is one of the best days I've ever. I couldn't believe that night when we beat them. So Wolfie's really done that, and then he's left that 2009, and then he's left and gone over to England to coach English Separate to be a head coach, and has won 3 Super League grand finals, which is almost unheard of too, and the Challenge Cup final. So he's done an amazing role. And I really, at the last year's World Cup, I was with Tonga again. I was over there in Australia, and I noticed a definite change in him, and not bad or good, but you can tell he's a head coach now. But for him to come back and say he wants to be assistant coach for 2 years underneath Wayne Bennett, to I suppose finish off his long apprenticeship, shows what a thinker he is. A lot of blokes, 3 other NRL clubs offered him their head coaching job, and he's knocked it back to be assistant of the Dolphins, and I think that says a lot.
I was listening to a James Graham podcast, and he was talking about Kristian Woolfe. Obviously, he'd love the guy because obviously what he did for his own club, St Helens, and he was just saying, look, a lot of people in Australia probably see Wolfie as an assistant, or he's done a little bit with teams, like an assistant coach. And James Graham said he is a first-grade coach, this guy.
Yeah.
He is a first-grade coach, and for him to be under Wayne Bennett, he was pretty much saying exactly what you've said then.
Yeah, it's evident. And what I like about it, and Wayne being the first coach of the Dolphins is obviously magic. He's working, he's sprinkling his magic dust as he does, and it was great for our brand to help build it. And the NRL were pretty adamant that's who it had to be, and that was fine. And obviously Terry and I and those guys, Terry's known Wayne a long time too, so that worked out. And Wayne wanted to be part of what's the succession plan here. And I'm telling you, from the first day I was in the office, I must have mentioned Kristian Woolfe every second day to Terry Reader about him, and I was really, really glad when we got that deal done. And I was often ringing Wolfie, going, "Wolfie, what are we doing? Come on, mate." But he had to go and talk to other clubs because he was hot property. But for him to come back now and be assistant coach 2 years, and then He's signed for the 3 years after that. A lot of NRL clubs these days don't know who their coach is going to be in 6 weeks. We know who our coach is going to be for the next 5 years. And I think that's part of our, when you're a new brand and a new club, that's key.
It seems like the back room have got their shit together, I suppose, in a way, which is, refreshing. I suppose, like as you said, a lot of clubs don't know who's, coaching the next year, but yeah, it's good. It's good to hear it's in a good place.
But a lot of you guys have all worked together previously, because it seems. Well, you said you're the third person who got the call up.
Yep.
Were the first 5-10 people all people that Wayne had worked with before?
Wayne wasn't. Wayne was obviously first. The second was Peter O'Sullivan, who's came from the Warriors, but has been in Storm, been in the Roosters, but we hadn't worked with him before. But he's well known as one of the best recruiters, and that's who Wayne wanted. Very luckily for us, he was with the Warriors at the time, and the Warriors were based at Redcliffe, so he was just across the car park. So that was a real key buy for us too. But yeah, I'd say the next couple who came in were me and Tristan Kroll. We were guys who've worked at Noise, but that's it. That's what Terry said. What he was, and then Damien McDowell, the chief commercial. Terry needed, so he said he'd been running that bit on his own the whole time, and now we needed to get stuff done, and he needed people he could trust to go and do stuff. And so I said, mate, my job, I was brought on as head of media and engagement, but for that first 12 months, because we didn't really build staff until, the back end of last year. I was looking after the apparel. I was doing sponsorship props.
Jack of all trades.
Well, you're doing everything, but that's what it was, and it was great. It was a bloody exciting year. You were doing all these things that you would have loved to have done at the Broncos, but you never could do. It was actually my job to ring, the football manager and the other teams whenever we signed a player, which was quite fun because I know a lot of those guys, but there was some. We took three of Melbourne starting front forward pack. The third call to them, they weren't as happy to hear from me. Penrith, we took 5 or 6 blokes from Penrith because Peter O'Sullivan's really they've got amazing nursery down there. So we took 5 or 6 of those blokes. I'm pretty sure the bloke from Penrith was sick of me calling. I always say the first phone call I had with them with any club would be, oh yeah, how's it going? Blah blah blah. Oh, it's going to be exciting for you. Blah blah blah. It was about 3 or 4 minutes long. By the time I did ring in the 4th, 5th time to tell them you'd taken a player, this next one was right. Thank you, see you, mate. It was about 10 seconds long.
Piss off.
Probably, but fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, no, nothing personal, but we were trying to make sure we were doing things in the right way. We were ringing clubs saying, okay, you're probably aware that we have signed him. We're going to announce it today. We want to make sure you guys know.
What's the relationship between Dolphins and Broncos? I'm just thinking on this because so many of the ex-Dolphins staff, rather than just players, because we know players jump ship, it's the part of the game, but do you reckon the Broncos are dirty, that they've got you guys have got a lot of staff?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think they should be reasonably comfortable in what they are. They're a massive beast. I mean, that week when we played them, a few weeks ago, that's the biggest week rugby league's had in Queensland in years, and this is the centre of the rugby league universe. There's no doubt. Look, the crowds hear them out. We got 51,500 in that night. That's amazing. That
club game.
Yeah, for a club game, 51,500 in. Now I know that's not big in AFL terms, but they're two different beasts. That's what I meant, and I think it was the 5th biggest rugby league TV audience of all time. So this is why the NRL brought this in. So look, I don't think so. My colleague at the Broncos, who I used to work, who does the same job as me, we're mates. We had lunch together the other day. We get on quite fine because it's no use having a spat over things. Do you want to beat them? Absolutely. Did I hope that ball went over Tony Stagg's head and ended up in a Dolphins hand and we win? Yes, but we didn't. But I tell you what, there's not many times that you lose and you go, you know what, we've won everywhere tonight except on the scoreboard. You can't be upset like that. I'm never upset about getting beaten. I'm only upset if the team doesn't play well. If they don't have a crack, I've got the shits. And that's what fans want.
That's what. Yeah.
Fans want. It's not a democracy.
Passion.
Yeah, you've got to make sure that you're having a go. If your team plays well and gets beat, you can't ask more than that. That's just the way it is. Sometimes you run into something better. We did that night, but we lost our halfback with 15 minutes to go. Cody Nicarima was out with a really bad cut and a concussion.
I thought he played really well last week.
Yeah, he's going good,
really
Cody.
well.
Really good. He's going really good, Cody. I think too, we were talking about it. Cody Nicarima and that young Isaiah Katoa, who's only 19, but is a real player of the future. They're playing together, and they've actually looked pretty good together in the last 2 weeks. We forget that our first two halves pairing of Anthony Milford and Sean O'Sullivan are both injured, but they trained as a pair during the pre-season, and the other pair on the other side in the second team was Cody and Isaiah. So they've got a little bit of a connection because they've done a lot of reps at training together. So yeah, I think they're I think we're going all right. Like, we're happy with the way things are going. Is it going to get hard from here? Probably, but let's see what happens. It's Wayne Bennett.
Mate, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Out of all your years in NRL football, I suppose, who's the most natural talent you've ever had dealt with?
Oh, geez, natural talents. It's hard. Look,
To pick one, I know.
It is hard. I mean, geez, it'd be hard. There's so many. I mean, I think I've always I love Katoni Staggs as a player.
Yeah, I knew you did.
I love Katoni Staggs as a player. I've seen him. For me, it's hard to say natural talent. What the guys I really love seeing, and then that you see him come through, and Ben Hump was one of them. Katoni Staggs is one of them. David Fafita is one of them. They're what I call the levels guys. So you see them in under 18s, and they're killing it. And then so you put them in like under 20s, and they kill it. And then you put them in the next thing, and they kill it. And you put them in the next thing. So I remember Katoni Staggs was, I hadn't seen him then, but I know from talking to people, he was 16, so they put him in first grade in the country, and he destroyed it.
Brained him,
so we brought him up here, and we put him in under 20s in NYC, the National Youth Competition, and he killed it. So we sent him to Queensland Cup. He's still 18. We sent him to Queensland Cup for play for Redcliffe. Killed it, won a grand final. And then you bring him up out of the Queensland Cup to make his debut. You put him on the bench just to give him 15 or 20 minutes, and then one of our centres goes down after 10 minutes, and he goes out there and scores 2 tries against the Roosters, and we beat him. And
That's
kills
a player.
it. Like, they're just those blokes that just can't levels. And Katoni Staggs is one of them. I said I like the best Bronco I saw, I've got no doubt, was Darren Lockyer, who was just unflappable, could do anything. Nothing worried him. I'll never forget that night. He kicked a field goal. His face was broken in half. Like he'd got a knee off one of his own players. His cheekbone was smashed. He kicked field goal. Like, I'll never forget. He's kicked that field goal. That was a semi-final. He kicked that field goal to win against the Dragons. Wayne was coaching the other team. We beat him at 13-12. And anyway, I've gone straight out to grab Lockyer, because I'm thinking, here we go, there'll be media thing up. And he said to me, I can't feel my face. And I'm like, that's not good. But he was just unbelievable, Darren Lockyer. And he was underweight. You see him now running around the streets. I think he's 72, 73 kilos, 75 kilos maybe. He played then at 86. That wasn't his size. That's what we built him up to get him to be able to play in the NRL. He was just a natural, unbelievable player.
And he wasn't blessed with super speed, super strong, he just had
vision. Vision, passion and desire. He's just like Wayne Bennett's kind of captain. They're not Jesse Bromwich is one of them. They're not big talkers. They're doers. So lead with your actions, not your words. He was just. Like, I saw the Broncos the last 5 years of his career, and they were magic. And the way he just kept doing it, it was just, I couldn't believe it. He played like Cameron Smith. unbelievable. I can't believe Cameron Smith played that many games. But, Darren Lockyer for me was no one won more games than him.
What about in your role, Trad? Who were some of the people that maybe challenged you, or some of the bigger characters you come across?
Oh, there's plenty of there's plenty of the guys who challenge you. There's a lot of blokes who don't want to do media, and that's not fine. If you want to be in
That's
this
your job, isn't it?
Well, it is part of your job to promote the game, and it's legislated, and it's in your contract. I remember, I won't name the player, but I remember I had a really good conversation with a player one day that made him understand, and he said, he was up for media. Someone else was doing an interview. He was next anyway. He was hiding from me. Anyway, I found him hiding in the physio room. I said, "Come on, mate, let's go." And he goes, "This is shit." I said, "What?" He said, "I don't want to do this, mate." I said, "I know you don't." I said, I don't want to have to make you to do it, but we've got to do things we don't want to do. All right, this is your turn to take a hit up. And he said, "Mate, I just want to play footy, train hard with me mates, and then go home and enjoy myself." I said, "All right." He said, "I don't want to do any media." I said, "Mate, you can do that." He goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, it's called the Queensland Cup."
Exactly.
Right. If you want to go back to being a tradie and go and play at one of the Q Cup clubs and get 30 or 40K, you will not have to talk to a journalist. But if you want to be here on 200 to 300, this is the way it goes, mate. So you work it out. I always say to guys, if you don't like this, go be a plumber's labour for a day. See how much fun that is.
You tried that, didn't you, Jacko? Didn't work?
4 days during COVID. No, well, every time I run now and I run past a job site, I'm like, well, I don't want to fucking be there, so I'd rather be here in my running shoes.
Yeah.
But yeah, who were some of the characters? Some people that made you laugh, made some stories.
Sam 4 days without.
Is he?
One
Yeah.
of the funniest blokes ever. I'm still good mates with Sam, and he cracked. He was genuinely funny, almost to a point of like he would get himself in trouble, and I'd say, "Sammy, mate, be a bit careful." He goes, "Mate, I'm going to be me. That's the way it is." But yeah, he was funny. I don't know if you remember, when he retired, he went to a makeup artist and got himself done up like an old man.
I do remember. I do.
Yeah, like an old way. Anyway, like he said, he told me he was going to do. I said, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yep." And we did it. He'd organised an old people's home, so I had the media come, and they had no idea why they were coming. And then Sam walked out on a walking frame, and he had like a bald head and like all these wrinkles. Now he looked hilarious. And I just said, when he told me he was going to do it, I said, "Sam, can't we do this with dignity?" And he's like, "No, I'm doing it my way."
Yeah.
So he was really, really, really good. And look, another one who was really good with the media, can be a bit competitive, but I liked it, was Corey Parker was another one who he would always do. I'd say, "Mate, I need you to do this or do that," and he'd always good. But he'd actually challenge journalists, and I quite liked it. They'd ask him some question. He'd go, "Well, what are you trying to say, mate? What are you saying? I'm not playing any good." Well, if you're going to say that, just say it, mate.
Yeah, just blunt.
He was good.
You ever heard of Dane Swan, who played for Collingwood?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a bit like that too. I remember he was getting swarmed by journalists, like out the front of their gym at Collingwood, and they said, "Dane, are you disappointed with your performance, losing by 96 points on the weekend?" And he goes, "No, I'm spewing. We didn't lose by 100. Just take the piss out of him all the time.
It was, but you got to remember, as I said, boys, we've got to remember, when we're talking to media, we're talking to our fans. So we need to tell them. And a lot of times it's like just trying to guys to be, I even said to Hammer yesterday, we've re-signed him for on a 5-year deal, so which is great news for the club. He's 21. He's going to be an awesome player. And I said, he already is, but he's going to get better. And someone asked him about State of Origin. He was like, "Oh yeah, mate, I mean, maybe." I said, "Mate, don't be worried about talking about your aspirations." I said, "Your answer to that question is, yeah. Do I want to play Origin? Yes, I do. Every kid who grows up in Queensland wants to play Origin. I want to play Origin. I'd love to play fullback, but if it's not fullback, wherever Billy wants me to play, I'm happy to play." I said, that's what you say there, mate. Like, don't be afraid of your aspirations. So I always try and say to guys like that, smile, talk about, like, do you want to play well? Yes, I do. You know, like, don't beat yourself down in front of the media. Like, enjoy it. But Corey Parker was a good one. Sammy was just hilarious. But I've had some bad ones, but yeah, they were the good ones.
They're the good ones.
You're not mentioning their names.
No, we'll skip that one.
No, I try not to. Look, it's not for some people. This is the hard thing I think about media is some guys are natural at it and like it. Some blokes are okay and like it. Some blokes absolutely hate it and don't want to do it. And they're the ones you've probably got to put the most work into. But yeah, the natural ones do make it easy, but it's not for everyone. The point is though, if you're an NRL player, you have to do it.
Yeah, as you said before, you signed that contract. That's part of your role.
I always say, I reckon, divide your whatever you're getting paid in contract money into thirds. 1/3 of it's for playing, which you do on the field. 1/3 of it is for training, what you have to do to get ready to go in the field, and 1/3 of it is promotional. So we can finance this game. So that's media, community engagement, sponsorship engagement, anything like that. Think of it. If you're on 300, think of about 100 for each.
Yeah.
That's what it's probably worth.
Excellent, mate. It's been really good, this podcast. Good to chat with you, Trad. And he trained for the first time in about 6 months today, too.
And we'll see him in another 6 months,
Hey, just quietly, he's been working on his bench press.
Usually he only rocks up here to spar a Sala.
Well, I do.
No warm-up, talks.
Mate, that's a bloke who hasn't been here for a long time.
Well, I do like coming in for a spar. It's good fun. I say this to my wife. Does not like me sparring, so I generally don't tell her when I'm coming. I just pretend I'm coming to the gym. But no, looks. The great thing about that sparring, and Sala and I have been sparring for a few years now, is it takes you out of your comfort zone. And you're going to get hit, but that don't worry me. I'm always happy to get hit if I'm going to get a chance to hit someone else. So it's fair enough.
As long as I can land back.
And especially Sala, because I keep him on the outside.
That's right. Le serpent.
The snake.
Trad, thanks very much.
Thank you, mate.
Mate, we'll speak soon. Thank you very much.
Legend.
Appreciate it, guys.
Good man.
Thank you.